Today on American Black Journal, we're talking about empowerment. The Michigan Women's Foundation works to empower women and girls. We'll hear about their annual awards for women who demonstrate achievement and courage. Plus, we'll talk with a man who's made it his mission to encourage young black males to stay in school and become empowered through reading. That's all coming up next.
Lindsay wants to know.
So I'm curious, what's DTE Energy doing to improve their customer service?
Why don't we take a ride over there and let Rachel tell us? Hello.
Hello. Take a walk with me. Here at DTE Energy, we're working very hard to improve our service, like answering every call under 1 minute and resolving the issue on the first call.
Wow, no passing the buck, huh?
Nope. And plus, we're adding over 100 customer service jobs right here in the state of Michigan.
I need to get a real job.
I'm going to send your application.
Thanks, Rachel. DTE Energy. Know your own power.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. The Michigan Women's Foundation works to eliminate barriers to economic and social equality for women and girls. For the past 25 years, the organization has awarded more than $3 million to programs and groups that share this mission. And each year it presents the Women of Achievement and Courage Awards to deserving recipients. Joining me now to talk about the Michigan Women's Foundation are Jacqueline Norther, Director of Development, Board Member Alexis Dishman, who's Vice President of Small Business Banking for Comerica, and Yodit Mesfin Johnson, a member of the Foundation's Power of 100 and founder of Lips and Hips, LLC. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
So tell me about the Michigan Women's Foundation.
Absolutely. The Michigan Women's Foundation is the only statewide organization that's solely committed to improving the lives of women and girls. As you know, we've actually been around for 26 years, not 25. Last year we celebrated our 25th year, which was a phenomenal year for us. Throughout history, we've been able to award $3.6 million to over 560 organizations. So we've been able to do phenomenal work throughout the entire state of Michigan.
And what's the thrust of the work that you're doing?
The thrust of the work is really equality. There are lots of struggles that women face. I'm sure that lots of people know that as they listen to CNN and other broadcast networks throughout their television stations, but we really haven't reached the level of equality that we need to reach. Really, women and girls are looking for their opportunity for equality.
Right. Alexis, you're the Vice President of Small Business Banking, correct, at Comerica. How are you involved with Michigan Women's Foundation now?
I am a board member of the Michigan Women's Foundation, I've newly joined board member, and I'm excited to participate in some of the access to capital funding that the organization will be providing, and to participate in however I can to ensure that women and girls in the state of Michigan have additional equality and they're on more of a level playing field.
That access to capital question you were talking about, that's a very important issue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's understanding the things that women need as entrepreneurs, communicating with them in the ways that'll help them to ensure that they are able to access capital, and then also providing education so that their businesses can move forward in directions that will exceed probably anything that any of us would expect.
Right, right. Yodit, I love the name of your company, Lips and Hips LLC. Explain to me, first of all, what that is, and then how you're involved with the Michigan Women's Foundation.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning. Lips and Hips is a women's personal leadership development company. We focus on women 25 to 45, and in particular trying to create a greater pool of women who are going into entrepreneurial endeavors, but also just in general to resource women and hold their hands through the process of, setting goals and eliminating those barriers for us showing up. If we want equality, we have to show up. And so our company is focused on kind of resourcing that, creating a space for them to do it.
Sure, and the Power of 100, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's really, it's been an interesting opportunity. So I was invited to an event I'd never known the folks that invited me. I wasn't quite sure what the nature of the invitation was, but there was something, you know how you get that nudging, I should go. And when I went, I was in a room of women who are accomplished women. I was the youngest woman in the room and the only black woman in the room. And these were accomplished women who had made it their priority to create a fund to support girls and women in Michigan. And what most appealed to me was that it was there weren't financial barriers to giving. So I was a young professional. This was 5 years ago. You know, young. I can't write a huge check, but I want to give. I want to make a difference for girls and women. And the power of 100 women, which now is closer to 200 women, was an elite group of women that shared common values like me that wanted to give to girls and women.
Right. This is sort of an interesting time for women nationally. I feel like we've got more women in Congress now than ever before. You see women as
in the last 20 years.
Well, that's right. Just
Not
in the
ever
last
before.
20 years. That's right. Because we did take a step forward at one point and
We
sort
did
of slid back.
Yeah, we did.
And you see women in really prominent roles. You know, the CEO of Facebook is a very prominent female executive, but there are still a lot of things that need improving, and there's still a lot of access issues, particularly for women of color. Right?
Absolutely, and I think the one thing that Yodit brought to the forefront in this particular conversation is the idea of young women becoming a part of the conversation. I think for so long, more of our baby boomers have been fighting this good fight, if you will, about women, access, not having seats in corporate conversations, not being a part of those corporate boards, et cetera. And I think that now the word about the equality that we should have as women is being a little bit more voiced, and young women, young professional women are being a part of the conversation, which is much more important and much different than I think it ever has been before.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that the foundation does that's very important is that they focus on young women also, to help them to understand the power that they have as young women and to empower them, and also to introduce them to philanthropy so that they can reinvest in themselves and in their communities. And that's critical and key to the movement as we move forward.
Right.
Absolutely. We have two programs actually that are a part of the Michigan Women's Foundation that focus on just that. They're Camp Moxie and there's also University of Life. And those are ways that we educate our young women on how to be leaders, how to be philanthropists. So we try to do that work internally at the Michigan Women's Foundation.
Right. What about the idea that women have to make different kinds of choices than men? They're still confronted with different sets of options
Absolutely.
than men.
And I know that here on this panel, there are two mothers here on the panel, and I'm not a mother, so I'm sure that they can speak to that challenge of being a mother, being a wife, also having a corporate role, being an entrepreneur. There are lots of struggles that women face, and I'm sure that they can speak to that.
Is that getting easier to do you feel like, or is it still just as difficult as it ever was?
Well, I think work-life balance is probably the most difficult thing for me to try to juggle and accomplish. I do feel as my career has progressed, I feel like there's been more opportunities for me to be able to work from home or to have more flexibility, but I still have a certain level of hesitation on that day where my child is sick and and I may have to call into a meeting. I always wonder, is that making a difference?
Right, is that gonna...
Exactly, but I feel like my career has been able to progress irregardless, and I feel like my children are well balanced, but it's definitely a balancing act, something that I continue to focus on and work with all the time.
I think work-life balance doesn't exist, and frankly, it doesn't exist for men.
It doesn't exist for men. I
either,
can speak to that.
And so we have to kind of change the social narrative around what that looks like and whether or not that exists. For me, it was taking a bow out of corporate America and exploring entrepreneurship in the nonprofit sector because of the flexibility. So I compromised on a high-paying salary, but I got the benefits of flexibility and being able to pursue some things I was passionate about.
And some autonomy, right?
Mm-hmm. And autonomy. Yeah. And so there are sacrifices, and I think we have to tell women, we have to say in our society, society in general that it's not a perfect science. You know, we stand on the shoulders of giants in terms of the women who went before us, but I think that breaking down the barriers is different than now starting to reset the foundation, redefine, and that's kind of what the 21st century women's movement looks like. It's inclusive, it's less about, you know, you kind of like swing the pendulum one way, and then you come back a little bit to say, okay, you know, I can't exactly like raise my kid, be a great wife, run a business, you know, run a company, be, you know, like something has to give, and so I think
Not a superhero.
I'm not a superhero, nor do I want to be, and I appreciate the women who broke those barriers down. I do want to say, though, that for me, the shift is around now looking at policy. So you talked about access, but policy is also important. As a young feminist, it was all about, like, I want a seat at the table. I want my voice to be heard. I want to, you know, hear me roar, kind of. And more, as I've matured in this process, I understand that policy is really important. So it's important to note that the Michigan Women's Foundation was really instrumental in changing child sex trafficking laws in our state, so that we don't have, Michigan was ranked 3rd in the country, not a developing country, Michigan, third in the country for child sex trafficking. And so advocacy, policy work is as important as kind of the movement and social work.
Sure. We've got about 2 minutes left, but speaking of policy, we've got some stuff going on in the legislature right now that would really change the face of work for women. One is a proposal to exempt people from exempt companies from having to give any family leave. These are the kinds of things that sort of remind you of the fights that you used to have.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, we went to sleep at the wheel, really after the 20th century feminist movement, as was the case in the civil rights movement. A lot of us thought, you know, we're done, right? Yeah. And so we went to sleep at the wheel, and that is why it's so important to have this dialogue. It's why it's so important to activate and engage as many women and men, for that matter, in what we're up against now, because frankly we have taken in so many social venues, we've taken a huge step back.
Yeah. The awards are April 29th this year?
Yes, April 29th, Monday at the Motor City Casino Hotel. We also have a luncheon in Grand Rapids. That's on Wednesday, April the 24th.
Okay.
We're expecting over 1,100 women inclusively. So if you're looking to learn more about the organization, we certainly hope that you'll join us there. Please join us at one of those events.
And they can find out information at your website, which is miwf.org?
That's correct.
Got that
That's
right.
Correct. Yes, you did.
It's because I've been surfing it.
Good. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, great to have you guys
here. You could be our first Power 100
You
man.
could.
Actually, you'd be our
I would
third,
love to be that. I would love to do that.
Okay. Right. I will hold you to that.
All righty.
Okay.
You call me up and I will be there.
Okay.
All right. Thanks to you guys for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next on American Black Journal, what does it take to get young males interested in reading? We'll talk with the founder of Boys to Books and meet one of the teens whose life changed dramatically after participating in the program. The numbers are staggering. Detroit's illiteracy rate is estimated at 47%, and 1 out of 4 Michigan students fails to graduate from public high school with other members of their freshman class. Boys to Books is a mentorship program that aims to reduce the illiteracy and school dropout rates. Take a look.
When Marcus Ray was just entering high school, he thought about dropping out. He is not alone. According to the Michigan Department of Education website, 1 out of every 4 Michigan students failed to graduate from public high school with his or her freshman class. Students who drop out of school lack the tools to compete in today's global economy, and they diminish their chances for success in the future. Marcus Ray is no longer at risk. The 17-year-old senior who never liked to read is now an inspiring author.
My 8th grade year, the hardest aspect of my academics was my reading. Like I passed math and science and spelling and sort of social studies, but my reading was sort of off base because they said that in my 8th grade year, my reading level was really on a 6th grade level.
He joined the Boys to Books literacy program at University High School in Ferndale, Michigan. High school teacher Eddie Connor founded the program to stop the school-to-prison pipeline. and to inspire young men to stay in school.
I believe the illiteracy rate has impacted the dropout rates. If you look in the city of Detroit, close to 50% of the residents are functionally illiterate. And then coupled with that, 70 to 75% of students who start 9th grade in Metro Detroit don't graduate from high school. So there's a direct connection, not just a school-to-prison pipeline, or just a dropout rate, but even a push-out rate. If we can empower and encourage young males, young people in general, to see that there's value in reading, value in education, and the relatability to that, that will keep them in school.
Eddie Connor, founder of Boys to Books, is here today along with Marcus Ray, one of the young men who participated in the program. Welcome to American Black Journal. Eddie, you're someone I've known for a while and wanted to come on, so I'm glad that you're here.
Hey, glad to be here, Steve.
So tell me about how you came up with the idea for Boys to Books.
Well, you know, I've been a teacher for the last 8 years at University High School, and actually I'm just one of 2% of black males in the nation.
That's right, who are teaching.
Who are teaching.
Right.
Right, so really when we get out of school, we stay out of schools. So
that's a great way to put that, right?
It absolutely is. However, I did my master's program at Marygrove College in Reading and Literacy, and I really began to really see the correlation, the connection, what was going on in the classroom. Whenever I put a book in the hands of a young man, whenever his eyes would see the book, whenever he'd open up the book, the eyes would close. And so really to say, how can I make reading just so encompassing to young men? Because I saw what was going on in the city of Detroit, as I just mentioned on the video, 70 to 75% of the young people who start 9th grade don't graduate. Also, as high, even with pro-literacy, that nonprofit organization says that it's high as a 60% for illiteracy in the city of Detroit. And so I said, you know, I really need to impact and empower these young men, because so many of our young men, they're building prisons based on 2nd and 3rd grade reading scores.
Right.
And if we got to teach them to read, to keep them out of prison and send them to Princeton. Right. and make that the alternative. And so, you know, it's just been really a groundbreaking program. It's been endorsed by the U.S. Congress. We're in 2 schools right now, and really young men are seeing, wow, I see myself reflected in what I read. Right. Language acquisition, verb conjugation, phonemic awareness, not just literacy, but life skills, leadership ability, how to be successful and significant in their world today, because it's a global economy now.
Right, right. So Marcus, you were one of the students who was in the program, but tell me about how you got to the point where you were in 8th or 9th grade and still struggling with reading.
Well, because when I was younger, basically when I was in kindergarten or 1st grade, I was going to Emerson Middle School, and
that's in where's that school?
In Detroit.
In Detroit. Okay.
Yes, and Emerson didn't really put a lot of emphasis during that time on literature. Like they would teach us the material, but it was more along the lines of like they would pretty much just throw it at us, and it was up to us to retain it. But they didn't really put a lot of emphasis on that. So carrying on to those years, when I got to my 1st grade year, I couldn't spell most of the words they would give us. They would give me a spelling test where it would be a list of words I would have to write and spell, and I couldn't spell any of them. It would be like good and cat, bat, easy words, 4-letter words, and I couldn't spell any one of them. Teacher would take me off to the side and ask me one-on-one, do I need help? What do you need to do? And after a while, like my parents would sit down with me and they would talk to me. They would one-on-one help me out. Even back when I was in Emerson, my parents would come to the school with me, and my mom would take time before she go to work. She would sit down with me and help me point out each word, sound the letters out and everything until I got it. And later on, after a while, when I finally was able to perfect my spelling skills, you know, and actually read the letters, sound them out with phonics and everything, I was able to overcome that. And after a while, I went from being one of the worst spellers in my class to actually being one of the best. Went to like 3 spelling bees, you know.
He said something that's really interesting to me about how they teach reading to young people in the schools. That's one of the big problems, isn't it? I mean, we've gotten away from teaching of phonics, which is the building blocks that everybody needs to be able to read, and they're sort of teaching it in a different way now, aren't they?
Absolutely, and you know, I believe it also emanates from the home, especially. You know, what they say is that by the time the average pre-literacy exposure for white kids compared to black kids, white kids have 4,000 hours of pre-literacy exposure. Black kids have maybe 250 to 300 hours of it. So by the time that, you know, we're not even at the starting line as black people, And by the time we're in college, in high school, or in just grade school in general,
Right.
there's automatically the achievement gap. And so even, as Marquise was just alluding to, the fact and the struggles and the trials that as he had with literacy, I think is indicative of what's really going on in the home, which permeates into the school system in general.
Right. And by high school, which is where you're intervening, it's really, it's
sure.
not too late, but it is very late to
Right.
try to correct that, because the way our brains form, it's second, third grade really when you need that reading awareness to kick in.
Absolutely. And even with that especially, there's the whole mentorship aspect. Young people actually seeing that you have a vested interest in them. And like myself, I grew up in a single parent divorced household, and many of the young men I'm dealing with have no father figure in their home at all.
Sure.
And of course, as a man and even a mentor, male mentor, sometimes there's that ambivalence towards authority. And so you're trying to deal with that. You're trying to overcome certain obstacles. And the reason why I'm doing this program is because of the obstacles I've overcome.
Right.
I'm a 15-year survivor of stage 4 cancer. People counted me
Right.
out. And to see the first 3 letters in cancer is can. I begin to replicate that message onto a young man like Marquise, who's got a 23 on his ACT, $16,000 worth of scholarship money, and he's headed to Oakland University.
Yeah.
What a success story
Yeah.
because of that. And I've got another young man, Jordan Causey, who just got a full ride to Eastern Michigan University. He wants to go into journalism. If you put us at the table, if you give us the proper skill and the equipment and equip us to be successful, we can compete with any and everybody.
Right. It's about opportunity and it's
Absolutely.
about access. Tell me what difference it made for you to have someone like Eddie intervene and help you versus some of the other teachers you might have had.
Well, like when I first came to University High School, I was a starting poet. It was like I've always written, like ever since I was in the 3rd grade, I've always written poetry because I'm depressed, and it was mainly because of reasons like I couldn't really make a lot of friends and I didn't really connect with my family like that. So I took out, rather than just sitting around and moping around and everything, I took my depressions and my emotions and everything, and I directed that towards my writing.
Put them in writing. It's a great outlet.
And over the years, I perfected that. I started writing raps for my cousin Shamar, who was in a gang, GHF, Groundhog Found.
Mm-hmm.
And he got me to the rap game and everything. But from what I learned from him was that I wouldn't from today when you listen to rap, you hear about get money, cars, and everything. I don't want to rap about that. When I rap about love, sticking by your friends, following your ambitions and everything. Not getting who has the most guns, killing people and all that. I don't follow that kind of negativity.
Right.
Mr. Connor, if you step into the classroom, you look at his board, all he does is preach positivity, believe in yourself, And Mr. Connor, by all means, he supports you 110%. He goes above and beyond everything he does, and he tries to put that on us, especially for Boys to Books and everything else,
Right.
And Mr. Connor, with my poetry and my raps, he's unhesitant, to giving me his feedback, like when I rap, if I talk too fast or if I'm not enunciating my words enough or I'm not putting emphasis on the right message, he'll look at my writing and he'll tell me, Marquise, you need to do this, you need to do that. And, and I take it to heart because Mr. Connor knows without a doubt what he's talking about. And, when Mr. Connor helps me in my writing, it comes out a lot better than what if I just went by myself.
Right. That role modeling he's talking about is important, but it's also very difficult to replicate because of what you pointed out, which is that you don't have a lot of African-American males choosing to be teachers.
Right.
How do we sort of turn that around? How do you fix that?
I think we've got to get back to the basics, especially in society, valuing education, valuing families. Our city goes according to the family structure.
Sure.
And Forbes magazine just listed us as the most miserable city in the nation,
I saw
Detroit. I believe we're not the most miserable. I believe we're the most motivated. And when we can motivate young men to see that there's empowerment in the community, lifting it up, going back and not being a predator necessarily, but being a protector.
Sure.
Empowering young women, empowering young men to make a change and to really just take the city back in our hands, not waiting on big government, not waiting on big business, but being the grassroots innovators to create and to develop something. This is just what I did.
Right.
I saw a problem and I believe
came up with an idea with a solution.
Absolutely.
Right? It's interesting to me that you're in Ferndale.
Yes.
at University High, seeing some of the same problems that we see in Detroit. That's happening now in a lot of inner ring suburbs, isn't it?
Oh, it really is, and really people are seeing that, you know, what is a microcosm in the city of Detroit, you know, is also going on in
going everywhere now,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And so it's really you finding your sphere of influence and being able to make a change and being the change agent there.
Right. And so, Marquise, you are headed to Oakland University next year.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to study?
I'm hoping to major in computer engineering and get a minor in graphic design. Hopefully come out, be able to make advertisements.
Well, there you go.
Work for computer software companies, you know, like Microsoft and Sony, and probably.
But keep writing. That's important.
Oh,
All right, we're out of time. It's great to have you guys here. Congratulations on the program.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear what you thought about today's program and get your ideas for future topics. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next time on American Black Journal.
This program is part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Lindsay wants to know.
So I'm curious, what's DTE Energy doing to improve their customer service?
Why don't we take a ride over there and let Rachel tell us? Hello.
Hello. Take a walk with me. Here at DC Energy, we're working very hard to improve our service, like answering every call under 1 minute and resolving the issue on the first call.
Wow, no passing the buck, huh?
Nope. And plus, we're adding over 100 customer service jobs right here in the state of Michigan.
I need to get a real job.
I'm going to send your application.
Thanks, Rachel. DTE Energy. Know your own power.